KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger, a public affairs program featuring stories from all over the Central Valley with Sevag Tateosian, 90.7 KFSR.
I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Welcome to the Central Valley Ledger. We're recording out of the beautiful campus of California State University, Fresno, in the Merlin D. Burris television studio, and our guest is Jerry Palladino. He has been a guest of the program before, but
it's great to be back.
Well, and you're back at the Fresno State studio. So what do you think?
Oh, I love it. I, was a student here when it was still Fresno State College, and I was here for a year and then got a full scholarship to USC.
Congratulations about that.
Oh yeah, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
And as we talk about the work you're doing, I think about the students that are in the studio now behind the cameras, making us look and sound good, volunteering for the program. How valuable is the experience they're getting?
I think it's something that will not only affect their future, but will stay with them forever. We were all students at one time, and of course we had aspirations of the things that we wanted to do. I know that's the way I felt too, and when I got my scholarship to USC, unbeknownst to me, I joined the leadership program that they had there that was sponsored by Bank of America. And Bank of America was the one that supported my scholarship. I was hired. So I started working for B of A when I was a sophomore at USC. And of course, 43 years later, I retired. So I didn't have the headache of going out after college and looking for a job. The wonderful thing about that as well is that I was able to stay at USC and get my master's degree, but then the bank sent me to Harvard and I got my MBA. So my dad was very pleased that I got a first-rate education in two great universities, and he didn't have to pay for it.
So the reason I asked the question about experience is because you put together plays, and I've been to two of your plays that were very well done, by the way, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Thank you.
But behind the scenes, I don't think people realize how much work actually goes into doing a play. Can you share with our audience some of the things that you think people may not think about?
Well, first of all, the play is on paper. It's a script. And for new playwrights or local people that may have just written their first play like I did with the two students, it's what comes off the paper and what ends up on the stage isn't necessarily all the same, but it's a creative process that you build. You take the play, you audition, you bring the actors in that you know can become the characters that they're going to portray. It's then the director's job not only to block the way the play looks and moves, but works with the actors to develop their roles. And I have always directed my people by saying, I'm not going to tell you what to do. What I want you to work at in reading your play is get into the skin of the character that you're portraying. And when you're on stage, or by the time you're off book or have memorized your cast, when you're on stage, you're no longer who you are, you're that character. And I work in a very intimate theater, which is the Fresno Soapco Gallery and Studio. And what's important about that is that your audience is about 10 feet away from you. And so your facial expressions, your body language and everything else has to convince your audience that you're the character that you're portraying. Once you are easy with that kind of work, and it is difficult because they see everything that you do. Once you're on a stage with a proscenium and you don't see your audience, it becomes a lot easier for you. So I learned how to act I was with Theater 3 in Gordon Godey downtown. And the experience that I gained was the fact that I was just several feet away from my audience. So he told me the same thing. You have to get into the skin of the person you're portraying to convince the audience that's who you are. So for the 1 hour or 2 hours that you're on stage, you're no longer Jerry Palladino. And that's the wonderful thing. That's the creative part of acting and playwriting and everything else. It's just, it's an artistic experience like anything else. Your previous guest, she writes. You know, it's not only wonderful to write the piece, but then have it edited and open the book and finally read something that's been published.
So what is Curtain 5 Theater Group? Can you tell us?
Curtain 5 Theater Group is currently in its 4th season. When I decided to open a theater group or a repertory company, I knew that I come out of an environment in Fresno that's not necessarily very competitive, but some of my colleagues, like Stageworks Fresno and Joel Abels, and even J. Daniel Herring here, who runs the drama department at Fresno State, Roger Rocca's Second Space, they're doing plays and musicals that we all know. I thought, I don't want to compete, but I want to be able to bring our audiences something that's new. And I thought the best thing that I can do is encourage local writers, bring their work, things that I think are stage-worthy, and give them an opportunity to see their work on stage. It's a double-edged sword, because I often tell a playwright, if you see your play become a reality and you find it not to be as stimulating for you, well then you know that this is not something that you want to do to support yourself for the rest of your life. But if somebody doesn't take the opportunity to have the faith in an individual to produce and direct and stage their work, we'd never have famous playwrights. Somebody had to do that. I remember I went to an actor's studio interview with Neil Simon. And of course, Neil wrote so many plays and has massive collections of Tony Awards for his comedies that he's written. And he said that if somebody hadn't taken the time to produce his first work,
He wouldn't be where he is
never
today.
would have had a chance in hell.
I saw 2 pieces of work that you've done, that you've put into a play. I understand they were written by high school students. The one was a father and daughter on a car trip, and you'll tell us about what that happened.
Yeah, that play was vuelos, and it's the Argentine word for relationship. And it was about a father and a daughter who are actually traveling to the city where his wife had passed away, and they were going to spread her ashes. The daughter left Argentina and went to school in New York. She's liberated and very headstrong. Father is the basis of tradition. When they are stranded in the middle of the desert, they confront each other because he had certain expectations of her that he felt she didn't achieve because she was too independent. Well, they grew to compromise, and in the last scene of the play, they come to not an impasse, but an agreement that he accepts her for her values and who she is, and she accepts him for the fact that she was able to become who she is because she had a tradition to follow. The other play was a comedy, and it was called Necromancing Around by Cyrus Kinzel, who was a senior at Roosevelt at this time. I produced 2 more plays by him. He is an amazing writer. He wrote another piece called Spiritual Awakening, which is a comedy, which was one of the big hits of last year's Rogue Festival. Mm-hmm. I am now doing another play by him that's called Chop Chop Charlie's Basement Party, which is a comedy about a serial killer cannibal. And it's so much fun, but people are waiting to see what he has to do. Again, he's a student here now at Fresno State. But both of those plays came out of a competition that I had in 2015 at Roosevelt School of the Arts. And I thought I'd get maybe one play out of that. I actually got 4 that were playworthy. The last 2 we're going to be doing in December.
Tell us about the last 2, and then tell us what you look for when you get this play, because there's a ton of plays out there, and so the plays that I saw were excellent. They were written well and they were performed well.
You almost have to be a hardliner when you're selecting something to stage. First of all, I read the play a couple of times. It has to have an interesting plot, not necessarily a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to process a story. And what I mean by that, it has to be a story that an audience can relate to, whether it's funny or serious. It has to be something that involves the person who watches. The 2 that I selected, again, another comedy and another drama, tugged at my heart. I felt good about them. But the writing and the construction of the play has to work. I mean, it has to be the lines, it has to be intelligently written, it has to be written in such a way that I have the basis to create the characters that were on paper.
So you get these plays, you select them. When and where can we see them?
When I stage them. I've probably, this past year is the first time that I've actually been able to publish a whole season. So Fresno Soap Co. has a website, and once the plays, this is going to be, for this next season is the first time that I actually will have 6 or 7 new plays that will be on paper ahead of time, so that our audience who likes to see new material will know when these productions are going to take place. But it has to be, the piece has to be stage-worthy for me to select it.
Well, and your actors and actresses did a wonderful job. Where did they come from? And I'm thinking of the young lady that played the Argentinian woman. Her facial expressions were there, her body language was there, and there were several other actors that you had that kind of did the same thing. And so where is your pool of actors and actresses coming from?
Many of them are friends of mine that I know that are actors, and others are came for auditions and they fit the roles. Tanya Hagunian, who played in Vuelos, I've known for a long time. Tanya, by the time she was in that play, she had done 4 other works for me. Matthew Vargas, who played the father, is a long-time member who's been with Curtain 5 since day one. The actors that I'm now using in the plays that I'm going to be doing in December, I've never worked with before, so they're new. Some of them are students from Fresno City College, from Fresno State, or that have just come to me through auditions. But as a director, I'm not saying that I hit the nail on the head every time, but I've had enough experience with actors to know those that I can work with. It isn't that I mold them, but I know that they're good listeners, and that from their resumes, I know that they've done the plays that they've done. I can kind of calibrate their level of experience, but I don't necessarily. The one actor that's going to be playing in the drama that we're doing called The Elephant in the Room. He's never acted before, but he had the look and the feel, and he's turned out to be wonderful. He's actually a singer who's written some beautiful music, and we talked about a project that he has, and I gave him a commission. He's actually going to be doing a little musical entertainment that we're going to do at the Fresno Art Museum next year. That was it was an outtake from an exhibition that we had, the photography of Frida Kahlo. And unbeknownst to me, I found out that the photographs were taken by her lover of 10 years. They had wonderful correspondence between each other. And I read those pieces, and we read them together, and he's developing a whole entertainment based on that. And so it's, you know, this is how the creative process works.
Are you doing this for the finances, or are you doing this because you want to put something out there? And the reason I asked the question is, I think, this is just me, and I may be wrong, I think you're doing it for the passion of the plays, and the work. It
is. First of all, Curtain 5 Theater Group is a 501c3. So all the money that I make through ticket sales does not go in my pocket. It goes right back into the productions that come. I had a great career at B of A, but what I'm doing now is a passion, and it's hard work. And I complain a lot, you know, that I don't have the time. And, but yet, on the other hand, what happens is that I do it because I love doing it. And I watch, and in the process too, I'm providing opportunities to new playwrights to bring their work to the stage and to help them develop what may be a career for them. Because I've always believed if somebody doesn't take a chance and stick their neck out for somebody else, they'll never know.
Tell us how excited the actual authors of the plays are to see their work in theater getting carried out.
It is a great experience for them because all you need to watch their faces. But at the beginning, they struggle.
Young.
You know, they struggle with you because they have a concept of what they have on paper, but they realize that that has to change. And so it's a difficulty in part of that creative process, but they do learn. But once they see their material, like the young lady who wrote Huelos, her parents came. Actually, the play that she wrote was based on her father. And so once the family saw it, they came up to me with tears in their eyes because it brought back all the memories of what, and the fact that we also videotaped it for, it's like a personal record. But for them, for both playwrights, it was a treasure to have your first creative endeavor videotaped so that it becomes permanent for them.
And what you're talking about is the volunteer CMAC crew that went out and actually videotaped both plays.
Well, you were one of the camera people too.
I was, and right now as we speak, they're on the CMAC website where people can go watch them. Mm-hmm. And I watched them. I was there and I watched it, and I watched it later on, and both of them were phenomenal work. How important is practice? Because we today will see the famous people. They do one movie and it seems like they get $10 million. And they do one video and it seems like they get another $10 million. But there's some practice there and work there, correct?
Those movies, those videos, those plays, they don't just happen. It's a long rehearsal process. With film, you work in scenes and segments, so by the time you're finished, you may have your first work that you memorized may be the end of the movie. So they really don't know their work until they see the thing edited. For a play, it's usually a 6 to 8 week rehearsal process. It's very intense. I know I've had several discussions with Audra McDonald, and Audra tells me, you know, it's the exciting part of bringing something to the stage for her is the rehearsal process. And with the last piece that she did, Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, she won her 6th Tony Award. But it was probably, for her, the most difficult rehearsal process she ever had, because she has this marvelous voice. But she was depicting a real-life person who was in the last month of her life, ridden with alcohol, drug abuse, and her voice was shot. A lot of people that saw it said, "That's not Audra McDonald, that voice is horrible." But she became the character that she was playing. And I know my father loved Billie Holiday, and I have the recordings that she had.
Yeah.
But you could hear Holiday's voice from the beginning toward the end of her life. What Audra did on stage was a miraculous rebirth of a character who was dying. And it was like, even to the tune that the character she was playing was drunk the whole time she was on stage. And the way she stumbled around and fell, people were terrified. They thought that, you know, that she really didn't realize she was so convincing in what she did. And that's truly a great actress. But it's all in the rehearsal process. And because you get a play here, you don't know what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. It's up to the director and the actors working with them to give them reality.
What advice do you have for young people that want to get involved in this work? And tell us how people can get involved in Curtain 5 Theater Group.
As an actor, it's opportunity to audition once they come up. And for anything they do, I know that Second Space, Good Company Players, you know, there are people waiting in line to audition. But if you want to be an actor, the only way to finally make it is to keep auditioning and keep getting roles and keep doing plays. The more you do, the better you get. It's just like an artist. The more you paint, the more you develop your craft. As a writer, the more you write, the better you come. And just like our author said, you know, she's going to take advantage of going back to classes. It's not only a creative process, it's a learning process. Directors, on the other hand, you don't learn to direct. I was an actor before I became a director. So I was able to take what I learned from those that directed me, and Gordon Godey was my mentor. I learned, but while acting too, I realized as a director what I had to bring out in my characters. But it's all a process of growth and a process of learning. You just have to work at it.
Is Fresno a good place for people who want to get involved in this industry? Because, and I ask you the question because, you know, we always hear about Hollywood. You know that we've seen movies and good plays in San Francisco, and here we are in the middle of both those places.
Fresno is an incredible creative, I mean, there's so much going on here. But again, too, look at Audra. She came from Germany when she was 5 years old. She had an exceptional talent, and she grew up, you know, in Good Company Players. But if Dan Pisano, who was her mentor, hadn't worked with her to develop that talent, she would have never been discovered and would have never had that opportunity to have a scholarship to go to Juilliard. And in her second year at Juilliard, she auditioned for her first musical, which was Carousel. She played Carrie Pipperidge, which was another unorthodox role for a black girl. And what does she do? She wins her first Tony Award. So it's just working at and focusing on what you want to do.
How important is music to this work? Because I see a lot of times the emotion is in the music while you're acting.
For a play, music or pieces of music set the tone for the action. Now, there are plays that have songs in them. But just like the play that I'm doing in November, which is an adaptation of D.L. Colburn's The Gin Game, which won Jessica Tandy a Tony Award and won a Pulitzer Prize. It's about two elderly people who are at the ends of their life in an old folks' home. Part of the action is at one time during the play, they dance, and another time they hear a chorus singing, which is entertainment for them, and they bitch and moan and complain about that. So for a play, the music that's part of the play, it just sets a tone. In a musical, it's
all of it, everything.
But yeah, sound effects too. You know, the thunder and lightning. If if it calls for that, you just can't talk about it. The audience has to hear it so that it becomes part of the action that they're walking.
We are running out of time this week on the program. Can you give your telephone number or information on how we can find out all the cool stuff happening at Curtain 5 Theater Group?
Anybody that wants to contact me, they can go to gp7594@earthlink.net. That is the email address that I use for Curtain 5. Or they can reach me and leave either a text message or a phone message at 559-375-0320. I answer every email and every text message that I get because I access it every day. Whatever you want to know about an upcoming author, I can put you on a mailing list.
Thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing all the cool things. We look forward to your upcoming work. The last two you did were phenomenal.
Thank you very much.
That's all for this edition of the Central Valley Ledger. My name is Sevag Tateosian. Thank you to the volunteer crew that made this production and every production possible. They're here in the studio now making us look and sound good. Thank you also to those watching us on Comcast 93 and AT&T 99, or to those listening to us on 90.7 FM KFSR Fresno. We recorded today out of the beautiful Merlin D. Burris Studios on the campus of California State University, Fresno. Hope you enjoyed the program this week. Tune in next week to a new edition.
Great.
KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger every Sunday morning at 11:30. For a complete program schedule, visit kfsr.org.